Hey, LinkedIn, and welcome to Business Unusual. This is a live show where we talk as a community about the changing nature of work. I am Susie Jackson. I'm a news editor at LinkedIn. It is September 10th. Let's look at some of the top stories professionals are talking about on LinkedIn today. School closings are projected to cost the US $15 trillion. That's according to a report from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Their paper looked at how missing 1/3 of the school year impacts the global economy and considers the loss of student skills. It concluded that worldwide growth could be stunted by 1.5% for the rest of the century. Can you expect a promotion in 2020? LinkedIn data finds that despite a rebound in hiring, promotions are stalling. As of August, promotion rates were down almost 40% compared to a year ago. Hard-hit industries include recreation, travel, transportation, and logistics, while education, construction, and finance are showing resilience. For more stories like these, you can check out the LinkedIn News module. It's to the right of your news feed if you're on a desktop or if you're on mobile by clicking into the search box. You'll find those stories and more. The NFL kicks off its season tonight. Most teams are playing in empty stadiums with fans joining the game remotely. So how are businesses who depend on the sports fan base dealing with this? We'll hear from Steve Pangburn. He is the CEO of Centerplate, a company that serves many NFL stadiums. But first, Joe Millord, LinkedIn editor for Sports and Frontline Workers, is joining us. Joe, welcome to Business Unusual.
Thanks for having me.
I want to check in on some of the major sports first, just to get a lay of the land. We've got the NBA and WNBA playing in bubbles in Florida, NHL in a playoff bubble up in Alberta, Canada. Major League Baseball is reportedly going to announce their own playoff bubbles in Texas and California. And we're seeing the National Women's Soccer League announce some fall matches, but they're going to be playing in 3-team pods to minimize travel. So we've got teams playing again, but in most cases, we don't have fans in attendance. Joe, talk to me about what does this mean for workers whose jobs depend on those in-person events happening?
Right. Well, for some context here, on a typical Sunday at a stadium like M&T Bank in Baltimore, which is where the Ravens play, you could expect about 3,300 workers playing on a game day Sunday. Obviously, with this upcoming NFL season, that stadium will not have any fans. In fact, 28 of the 32 teams will not be having fans. And of the 4 teams that are allowing fans, they're allowing them at extremely limited capacities. This means that there is a necessity for a limited capacity among the workforce as well. Again, on a normal Sunday, you're expecting tens of thousands of fans parking, paying for concessions. You won't be expecting that anymore. And thus there's not the workforce expected for that need either.
Yeah, and you're mentioning there's so many workers who that you might not think of at first. You think about the players, are they playing or not? And then maybe you think if you're at the stadium, you need something to eat or drink. But you're mentioning parking attendants. You're mentioning other businesses. It just kind of is a ripple effect around these stadiums. So we've got the NFL kicking off tonight, as you mentioned. Most are playing without fans in attendance. Some will welcome them back soon.
Yes.
What are you seeing with businesses around stadiums or even entire towns? I'm thinking about some college football towns that live and die by their team season, and a lot of those seasons have been canceled.
Right. Well, in the case of the few NFL teams that are allowing fans, we have seen them publicize how they are altering their businesses and their facilities to allow for safe concessions with visuals of the safety precautions that their workers are taking. But the note that you bring up about college towns is extremely important because of the nature of those towns. When we're talking about professional teams, we're talking about teams that play in cities with otherwise large populations in big centers like Miami, LA, Philadelphia, and New York. Whereas these college teams, their economy, a large part of their economy is built around these game days. I'm talking about smaller towns, these college towns like Ann Arbor, Michigan, where there will be no football this upcoming season, or Lincoln, Nebraska, where there will be no football this season. And the stakes are much more higher for businesses, the restaurants, the bars around these towns, you could argue, than they are for those surrounding these NFL towns.
Yeah, so you mentioned college football. A lot of those seasons have been canceled. I know a lot of those teams, they were on different sides of it. Some players wanted to get out there and play, others didn't. It was a pretty interesting discussion to watch over the last couple of months. Where do you think that these players have landed on it? If you're an athlete, college athlete, you're ready to go back, you wanted to play, but you're not, what's happening with those folks?
Right. Well, and during the summer, there was actually a large discussion among players. You saw players speaking to each other across teams, across conferences, making the point that they want to play, but that they want to play under safe conditions. And in many different cases, those assurances couldn't be provided by the different athletic programs. And some of the athletic programs, as a result, decided to back out. I'm talking about the Big Ten, which is largely centered around the Midwest area, and the Pac-12, which is on the West Coast. Teams that are in the Southeast, meanwhile, are continuing with their seasons. But I guess we can say that the impact and implications of the decisions of whether to hold back or whether to go forward, we will see as the season progresses. We will see if they are able to keep the players safe. We will see if they meet roadblocks like Major League Baseball did when they had an outbreak among a couple of teams in the middle of the season. And then we will see how they react, whether there is actual protocol to adjust to a situation like that.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about safety here. And for the folks who play these games, at least professionally, that's their job too. So we want to ensure the safety of workers and fans coming into the stadiums, but also the players themselves are a consideration. And when you're an amateur athlete in college, well, you're still out there on the field, face to face and sweat dripping everywhere with everyone else. So you really got to think about on both sides of the ball, in and out of the stadium as well. I want to say hi to a few people joining us in the stream today. We have Michael from Connecticut. Welcome to the show. Dolores from Texas, Mark from Sweden, Phil from St. Louis, and Diane from Pennsylvania. Thank you for joining Business Unusual today. Right now, talking with my colleague, Joe Millord. Joe, I want to ask one more question before you go. I know early in the pandemic, we saw some teams and some owners stepping up to commit to paying venue staff through canceled seasons. Mark Cuban famously said it live on air during a Mavs game. What are you seeing in that space now?
Well, it was a much different time when the NBA announced that it would cancel games, and when league after league announced that big events were canceled, like the NCAA tournament. What I'm saying is that in the immediate shock and the aftermath of all of these implications rolling in one by one, this massive economic fallout, that there were a patchwork of ideas coming from different teams, and also even down to players contributing to funds to support these players. Even in May, the Ravens owner, Dick Cass, announced that he would be supporting team staff or stadium staff, rather, whether there are fans or not. And as we talked about earlier, there are not going to be fans. However, there has not been much news lately within that on that front of teams stepping up and players stepping up, or any of the leagues trying to support players. And my guess is that since then, we've had trillions of dollars in government action to help support workers. It's not the same context as it was in the immediate aftermath of all of these stay-at-home orders coming in and all of these league schedules getting canceled as it was earlier in the spring.
So we're really seeing things shift, and I know you're going to stay on top of it, Joe. Thank you for joining us on Business Unusual. We look forward to having you back in the future to hear about what the developments are for workers around these impacted businesses. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And now I want to welcome our next guest to the show. Steve Pangburn is the CEO of Centerplate. It's a company, Sodexo Sports and Leisure. Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Susie, and thank you for having me today.
So Centerplate, I know, provides hospitality services across the U.S. and Europe, including in some of the NFL stadiums that are about to open back up this season. Miami, for instance, is a stadium I know that you serve, and they're approved to bring in 20% of their fan capacity, about 13,000 fans, when they open at home on the 20th. Steve, I'm really interested in what is this fan experience going to look like?
All right, Susie. Well, thank you. First of all, we partner, as Joe said, there are 4 teams, but we partner with 2 of them. And so the Miami Dolphins, as you mentioned, that's the one where we're going to have 13,000 fans come back. That's the biggest one. And boy, a lot has changed since the Super Bowl in February. And that's the big football game we had. And fans are absolutely going to see a big change. And that's, first of all, the change is that there are only going to be 20% of the people in the stadium. So it's almost like being at your home, having very few people around you and being close to the action. And so that's going to be memorable. It's going to be unique as long as the restrictions are in place. But they're also going to really see all the measures that we've been working on with the Dolphins over the past 6 months in order to make it safe for our fans, for our teams, and for our own employees. And so they're going to see, social distancing measures. They are going to be required to play in the game with us, do their part. So everybody will have to be wearing a mask. throughout the stadium, throughout the property, whenever they're not eating or drinking. But we're also taking advantage of this, I would say, opportunity through COVID to make some technological advances. So we're actually going to be doing a lot of mobile ordering and pickup, which is going to improve the fan experience because they're going to be able to order from their app and then go pick it up and spend no time in lines. So it's safer for them and they get to see more of the action in the field.
So I love how you're talking about this with the positive spin of it's going to be like watching the game at home, which for football, I know myself included, no offense, Steve, I sort of prefer watching at home because you get all the different camera angles and you don't have to wait in line for food, et cetera. But you're talking about 13,000 fans coming. I want to get a sense for how much of a drop that actually is. We have some graphics here to pull up that show the capacities at these stadiums normally. So we're talking about 13,000 fans coming back to Miami, which normally hosts 65,000 fans. So that's a lot of room. We are bringing people back. We're going to talk more about how we're going to keep them safe, but it's still, it's a pretty much a drop in the bucket to what these stadiums can hold. So you were talking about some of the new ordering systems. I'm interested in getting into that a little bit. We've all gotten familiar with how, say, restaurants are dealing with COVID. You can put your tables 6 feet apart. You can't do that if you're a concession stand in a stadium. You can't always judge when you're going to have your longest line. People are going to be in and out of their seats all the time. How is some of this technology going to help address those flows?
Sure, that's great. Well, you're going to be able to, on your app, order your food and then go pick it up. We've actually transformed 17 of the locations, the stands that normally were the concession stands, into pickup areas. So you're going to be able to order, and it's frictionless. Order, go pick it up, and come back right to your seat. And that's a big change that people are going to see. And again, spending more time watching the game than standing in the lines.
Do you think that's a technology that's going to stick around post-COVID? Because that sounds kind of great, that you can just stick around in your seat, not have to wait in line, worry about missing a big play. Is that something that you see plans to keep around?
Absolutely. And I think the cashless part as well. But when you go to a restaurant, I think you're happy not to be touching a menu. It's the same thing in a stadium now. People are going to be happy to be having the opportunity to order on the app and then go pick it up. So they're going to enjoy that, and that will continue well beyond the impact of COVID.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about staffing. So you're talking to us about the contactless payment, the pickup, but I think that means that you're not going to see people selling peanuts, popcorn in the stands anymore. The hawkers aren't going to be there as a position. So you're losing some folks there, but are you adding new workers and new positions in other spaces in this mix?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are reducing the number of hawkers because of the touch points. So we're trying to eliminate as many touch points as possible. But we are having some new roles that have been created with COVID. We have a sanitation squad that will actually be walking around the entire stadium during the entire match to ensure that people are really abiding by all of the protocols that we're putting in place. The fan is going to have a great experience because the number of staff, both from the guest experience staff on the Dolphins side, but our own teams as well, are going to be higher in terms of the ratio compared to the number of fans. So there will be more guest service personnel per fan than in normal times. And the best thing for people is to get back to work. So we're really excited that we're able to bring back 13,000 fans to Hard Rock Stadium, but also 2,500 fans to the Colts, their first game as well. It's great to be able to open back up and be able to bring our teams back to work. That's the key.
Yeah, getting people back to work is always amazing, especially in these times. You're talking about creating some new positions here. I'm curious about the training aspects of this. I think people can experience dicey interactions when it comes to mask wearing. Some people are okay with it, some people are not. And now you have newly created positions of folks who are supposed to go around and essentially police that, or to make sure that people are abiding by these new rules. Maybe the people are very clear on the rules, maybe they're not so sure. How do you train your staff up to be ready to handle those kind of interactions?
Well, there's in-person training well before the game. We've also been running with the Dolphins the drive-in movie theater. So we've taken the opportunity well in advance of the actual season opening to train people on these new protocols. And actually, there's also a training online session that the Dolphins have put in place. I took it yesterday, and it's great. It tells exactly our teams what they need to be doing. And again, we'll have our various sanitary squads walking around the stadium, making sure that our people are abiding by those protocols.
And we've got a question here in the stream along these lines. Medhab wants to know, are you planning on scanning all attendees, doing thermal temperature checks and mask detection? So you've talked about masks a little bit. What is it going to look like at the gate when everyone rushes in for game time? Normally those lines can get really long. You've got people tailgating, they're having fun, they want to get into their seats. What's that experience going to look like now?
Well, there will be no tailgating, so that's one big change that the fans will see. They will, however, be coming in a bit earlier, so they'll be coming in for a 1 o'clock game. They'll be coming in at 11. The Dolphins have installed new metal detectors that permit you to go in without actually taking things out of your pocket. So there's no more touching there. So they've invested quite a bit to get people into the stadium quicker without having those touch points. For our own teams, we have a questionnaire that's an online questionnaire that every staff has to fill out before each and every game around temperature, around any contact that they've had with anybody who's been ill. So it's a mandatory step that we've implemented to ensure that our teams are safe and they're not bringing something into the stadium.
I think that sounds like really interesting tech for this going forward. I know those lines can get pretty crazy when people are all trying to crush the gates at the same time, and you're dealing with maybe scans or pat downs. So it sounds like that's maybe a silver lining of this, that process will be more efficient as you do welcome back more and more fans. I want to welcome some of the viewers joining us from the stream right now. We've got, we've got Summer from Texas, Dawn from New York, Jonathan from Florida, and Abby from Colorado. Thank you for joining us. Wonder what teams you're rooting for as the NFL season kicks off tonight. Let us know that in the comments. Steve, I want to know, have there been any ways you've gotten people back to work creatively over the summer? Normally, the NFL's not really playing in the summer anyway, maybe some preseason games later on. But how have you gotten workers back into the stadium?
We've actually been partnering with the Dolphins and other venues around North America to actually link up with the local communities. And in fact, in the Miami area, we've delivered out of Hard Rock 1 million meals to the senior community around the area, and that's partnering with the Dolphins and the owner Stephen Ross and the vice chair or the chairman and CEO Tom Garfinkel. They put in place a great program to support the local community, and that's permitted our teams to actually be preparing the food and helping deliver the food to the local community. So it's been a really good opportunity for us to really connect to all the people around our venues.
It's great to see that community support. And I know you actually try to partner as much as you can with local vendors. Have those relationships changed now in this COVID moment?
Yeah, absolutely. We are absolutely trying to buy as much product from those local companies and restaurants and producers, because they're suffering even more so than we are. So the more that we are able to support the local communities through those purchasing programs, the better it is for all of us. So we are definitely focused on improving and increasing all local purchasing.
That's wonderful. I've got Frederick here in the stream giving you kudos. He said the steps being taken are awesome. Keeping everyone safe and healthy is key. I also have an interesting question here in the stream. Someone wants to know, has the menu changed because of COVID? Perhaps are there fewer finger foods? Is that a consideration at all?
Yeah, the menus are changing. We are reducing it to the fan favorites. So the things that people absolutely buy the most of, we're providing more of those to the locations. We're also prepackaging a lot of the food that you'll be seeing. So there are changes to the way we are and the products that we will be selling. So yes, there are changes, absolutely.
What's your fan favorite food, Steve?
Well, my fan favorite food is always the hot dog. So sorry to say that, and we have a great Cuban dog at our Hard Rock Stadium. I love that one as well.
Well, hard to prepackage a hot dog, so I hope that's still on the menu whenever you're going to head to your first game. Dolores in the stream here says she loves hearing about the tech being used in the sports industry. Makes me have the confidence to go in person and attend these games. So Dolores, that's great to hear that we're helping that be a more comfortable decision for you right now. Sean wants to know how much more security will be at games to keep fans safely distanced and assure the safe entrance. So you mentioned some of those methods before, and I know you're talking about your staffing ratios being a bit higher. And then the stadiums at large, though, are they boning up on security as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And the guest experience teams. So each of the teams have a guest experience team, and they have more people per fan than they used to have in the normal time. So as there's only 13,000, they're not increasing the numbers that they're bringing in, but the ratio is more significant. And they are absolutely playing their part to ensure that everybody respects the different rules, the social distancing and the mask wearing. We all have to play our part so that we can show, as Joe said, that it's successful, so that we can open more and more venues. And that really relies on all of us, wearing masks, social distancing, and being patient and tolerant, so that we can all get through this together. And that reminds me of an old saying, don't leave home without it. That has new meaning today with the mask. So please remember to bring your mask. If you forget it, we do sell them at the merchandise stores as well, but you have to wear it whenever you're on the property.
Well, if anyone's watching from Amex, they'll be very happy to hear you giving that jingle again. I've got a question from Kelly in the stream. She wants to know, will virtual reality viewership from home be implemented in the future? Steve, if you don't know about VR specifically, I know you've also worked on other events across the world. You're working on the Tour de France right now, some European soccer matches. What are you seeing in any of those venues that you think is interesting and might be the next thing that we're expecting here?
Well, yeah, we have had experience with the Tour de France, but also at the UK Premier League. We've just done a test match there with our partner Brighton. They played against Chelsea, and we had 2,500 people in the stands there. And what was great was we had messages, or the team had messages from their players to the fans on COVID and what they needed to do, what their part in keeping everyone safe was. And that was really neat, because that's who people want to hear from. They want to hear from the players saying, this is important. This is important that you play your part as being part of the overall team in getting this safe environment for everyone.
And speaking of teams, Kimberly in the stream says the world can learn so much about staying healthy from your team at Centerplate. So thank you for sharing that, Kimberly. Umesh says it'll be interesting to see crowd management protocols, especially when your team is doing well and fans are excited. People do get very passionate about their football games. Jocelyn says, thank you for the great talk. She loves hearing these updates and the strong actions being taken that will hopefully work out for the best. Steve, thank you for joining us and telling us about all the precautions that you're taking, and best of luck as the season kicks off.
Thanks a lot, Susie. And everyone's going to remember their first game back, so we're there to make it that unique experience. And Susie, hopefully you and everyone on today's live cast is going to be feeling safe to go out and join us at a stadium near you soon. So thank you.
Go Patriots. That's all I have to say.
Go Dolphins. Go Colts. Go Sam. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. That was Steve Pangburn. He's the CEO at Centerplate, a company that provides hospitality services to many NFL stadiums and other sports and leisure activities worldwide. Tomorrow on not on Business Unusual, but tomorrow on Get Hired Live, my colleague Andrew Seaman will host Virginia Franco. She is an executive storyteller and resume writer. You won't want to miss that conversation here on the LinkedIn news page at noon Eastern. Thank you so much for joining Business Unusual today. I'm Susie Jackson.